Hi everyone. So some of you have been reaching out to me recently and telling me that you are starting your journey into the world of Hoyas. So I thought today I would share with you some of my favorite Hoyas. And luckily I own most of my favorite Hoyas. So we are going to be seeing all of the Hoyas currently in my collection. Plus I have 4 additional ones, maybe 5 off of my Hoya wish list that I will be sharing with you as well. Now, this is going to be a little bit tricky today because I was trying to bring out all of the plants just to have them ready to lift up for you, and Theo thought they were being brought out for him to play with. So I am going to have to be pausing and swapping out plants periodically, so just bear with me. But just a little background for you guys, because I know a lot of people don't like Hoyas. They don't understand what the hype with Hoyas is. I was one of those people to begin with. I would see them in stores and I was like, I don't know, what's the big deal? I don't think they look that good. And then I started to find the Hoyas that were right for me. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about that here in a second. But honestly, I do believe there's a Hoya out there for everyone. I would be hard pressed to say that I couldn't find at least one Hoya that you were like, oh, that's kind of nice. I wouldn't mind owning that one. And honestly, part of the reason I think that's possible for everyone is because there are just so many thousands of different species of Hoya. But luckily, a lot of my favorite ones are readily available and easy to find. And what I found when I first started getting into Hoyas was that I really preferred smaller leafed Hoya. I'm not a big fan of the giant leafed Hoyas. I'm not a big fan of the veiny looking Hoyas. I understand other people are, and that is totally fine. There is one veiny leafed Hoya that is starting to grow on me, and that is the, Callista Phyla? Callista, no, I'm not even gonna try. I'm gonna put it up on screen for you guys. This one is starting to grow on me, but I still just don't think I want large leaf Hoyas in my collection. If I go to visit somebody and they have one of these, I will admire it in their space, but it's for them, it's not for me. So the first Hoya, and I'm probably not really gonna do these in any particular order, other than I will save my #1 wish list Hoya for last today. So not in any particular order because I am going to tell you kind of what I like about all of them anyways. But the first Hoya I want to take a look at today actually is one of my all-time favorite Hoyas, and I know a lot of people feel this way as well about this plant, and that is the oh so beautiful Hoya Linearis. So this plant, I mean, it's just so unique looking, you guys. There's only a few Hoyas out there that kind of take on this appearance with these thinner, smaller, slender type leaves. You have the Linearis, and then the other one that is kind of the most similar to this, even though it looks quite different, honestly, is the Hoya retusa. I absolutely love the look of this. Obviously, if I don't like big leafed Hoyas, this is definitely not big leafed, but I just love the way it hangs and the way it looks. It's just very jungle-like to me without being overstated. I guess that's what it is. It's like an understatement, and it just flows. It just kind of looks kind of like flowing, like leaves flowing like water. I don't know. Does that even make sense? I just like the look of it, the flow of it. And I also really like the fact that on the Hoya Linearis, the branches are not brown. So on a lot of Hoyas, and I did learn that kind of early on in my Hoya journey, a lot of Hoyas have like really woody looking stems that you see a lot of the stem on most Hoyas, by the way. And so you have this very woody looking stem and then these giant leaves, and I just didn't like the look of it. But on this one, I kind of like that it's all green. There's not that contrast. Now, this is a relatively small plant. I have not repotted this since I got it. I've had it for, I don't even know, you guys. I'll flash it up on screen for you. We have propagated it together once. We did plant those propagations back up in the top, and as you can see, they are starting to grow in. There's one there, and then this long one that's hanging off over here is also one of the ones that we put in here. Now, that is another thing that I like about this plant is that, for me at least, it has been a relatively fast grower. Hoyas in general, though, you guys, not the fastest growers, but some do grow faster than others. So I will talk about which ones in my collection I find grow more quickly versus the other ones as we go along today. But just a reminder, they're a type of perennial plant, and the way that they are, you'll hear something recited from people regarding these plants, and that is that first they sleep, then they creep, then they leap. So basically these plants really like to focus on creating their root structure first. And so for the first year sometimes that you own them, they might not grow hardly at all because they're working on developing that root system. Once they develop that root system, then you'll start to see the growth pick up a little bit. So that's why they'll say like in year 2, it creeps, it grows, but it's not growing super fast. But then once everything's fully established in around like the 3rd year for most people, it leaps and they just start taking off like crazy. That is also when you're more likely, I think, to start seeing blooms and flowers than when they're still young and kind of trying to develop like this. But absolutely love this plant. I can't say enough about it. I just looking at it now, I'm like, it's so beautiful. And I want to fill this one in even more. I'm probably going to keep the most recent propagation we did of it that we potted up separately instead of potting it back into here. I'm probably going to hang on to that so that when I do need to repot this one, I can combine them and make it more full, but I can't recommend this Hoya enough. But let's move on to our next one. I'm trying to decide which one I want to show you next. Let's talk about the Hoya Eddie Eye next because it's another slender leafed Hoya. And I have a thing for slender leaf Hoyas as well. So beautiful, beautiful plant here. It is a variegated plant. There are other Hoyas, by the way, that have a similar look to this that are all green. I'm not sure that there actually is a solid green Hoya Eddie Eye. I will have to double check for you guys because I think sometimes people say, oh, here's a green Hoya Eddie Eye, and it's actually a Shepherdii Eye. And then there's one other one that looks kind of like this that is all green as well. I will flash them up on screen for you. But if you are not a variegated plant person, because I know a lot of people out there just are minimalist and purist at heart and they enjoy their all green, and that is okay. There is a similar looking all green version, several Hoyas that you can choose from. But one of the things I do like about this one is that the stems are actually kind of pinkish in color. So once again, I am just not a big fan, I guess, of brown woody stemmed Hoyas unless you can't see them like a lot, which you'll understand when we look at some of the other plants coming up. But this plant has actually grown relatively quickly for me compared to what I've heard people say about it. It has not, however, grown as quickly as the Linearis. I got this around the same time as I got the Linearis. And so, I mean, you can see they both were about the same length and everything when I got them. And yeah, look at the difference. However, I do feel like this one has actually produced more vines, like it's filled out more than this one because I have been having to fill in with this one. So I guess if you take that into consideration, maybe they've grown the same. They just haven't grown the same lengthwise. But this one has really started taking off this summer more. It's probably moving into its creeping phase. You can see all of this new growth starting to come in here. And another reminder for anybody who's not aware, and maybe this is something you've seen on Hoyas and you didn't like the look of it, but when Hoyas grow, I'm trying to see, I'll have a better example of this on a plant later. But the stems will grow out and they will be blank. So imagine those 2 leaves weren't there on the end. It'll push out growth like that, which looks kind of silly, especially if it's like a big old brown woody stem with nothing. But that is just how they grow. And then once they push it out till it's about like probably about this long or whatever, then you'll see leaves start to open up like's happening here. So there will be more leaves that will develop probably right off of here. Yes, it's already starting to kind of bud. So it'll develop more leaves off of here and eventually that will fill in and it won't look weird like that. But that is just how they grow. So just be aware, don't cut it off because you're just going to slow down the growth if you do that. But another thing that I really enjoy about Hoyas in general is when they get sun stressed, they take on beautiful pink shades. So we are starting to finally get direct light coming in my southern facing windows in the living room again where this plant lives. So you can see it's starting to take on some more pinkish tones. I do find that the growth on a lot of these Hoyas that are variegated that we're going to be looking at today, such as this one, the new leaves do come in typically slightly pink to begin with, and that pink kind of fades away over time. But I absolutely love this Hoya. So let's see. Let's talk about the Hoya Courtesy Eye next. Actually, you know what, you guys? I don't know if I did get this one at the exact same time as the Linearis, but if I didn't, it was within a few weeks. I think I got my Courtesy Eye at the same time as the Linearis. And this is how it happens, you guys. You get one Hoya, and then next thing you know, you got a bunch of Hoyas. So the Courtesy Eye is one of my absolute favorite Hoyas, and once again, a small leafed Hoya. If you guys have not seen my this or would I buy this or that now video. I actually featured this in that video as an alternative plant to the Chain of Hearts, the Ceropegia woodii, because they have kind of a similar look to them in my opinion, but I actually like this Courtesy Eye way better. It's way easier to keep looking good. I think it's honestly a bit way easier to care for, but that's just my 2 cents. But absolutely beautiful plant. Does have these small little green leaves with a beautiful kind of silver variegation on it. Now this is a Hoya that, as you can see, has the brown woody type stems, but because these leaves are so tightly together, they grow so close together, it's not as obvious as when you see it on some other larger leafed Hoyas. And when it does get new growth, like it's getting, where was I just seeing that? Back here, it's getting some new growth. The new growth will come in. Hold on, it's tangled. It doesn't want me to show you. The new growth will come in a brighter green, and then it'll fade to that woodier color over time, if the camera will focus. So just keep that in mind. But I don't think it looks bad on this plant. This is another plant where if it gets sun stressed, it takes on kind of a maroon color to the leaves. When I first bought it, it actually did have a little bit of sun stressing on it. I just don't have it. I mean, it's actually, the way Eddie Eye lives directly in the windowsill for the southern facing windows. This is on the closest shelf on the wall behind the couch. So it's probably can get a little bit sun stressed, but it's not gonna happen until the winter because it's not getting direct light yet. But I find they really have to be kind of directly in the window, in my personal experience, to really get that sun stress, but I just absolutely love the way it looks. And if you guys aren't sure about sun stressing and exactly what it is it good for the plant? Is it bad for the plant? I have a whole video on how to take care of Hoya, and I go into that in more depth in that video. So I will link that video in the description below for you, as well as at the end of this video. But an absolutely beautiful Hoya, and this one has been a very fast growing for me. We actually just propagated it recently, and these are the 2 vines that we didn't cut. And you can see how much more they have grown since we propagated it. So I'm gonna have to cut those again soon. It definitely, I'd say it might even be faster growing than the Linearis. Right now they're probably growing about the same rate, but I feel like this one took off more quickly after I bought it than the Linearis, and all of these were roughly the same size. They're all in like 3 or 4 inch pots when I got them, but I can't recommend this Hoya enough for you guys. Okay, so those are the 3 that I was able to safely bring out before Theo decided he was going to try to attack everything. So let me swap them out for the Hoyas that are in my bedroom. Okay, so let's start with another smaller leafed Hoya next. And honestly, you guys, I am so upset about this one I'm about to show you. I do have footage from when I first got it and showed it to you guys so you can see what it should be looking like, but I tried moving this plant a while back into the east-facing window in the upstairs living room. Now, for those of you who don't know or might not remember, I didn't have plants upstairs for a long time because I have solar screens that block out too much light on all the windows up there, and I didn't have a ladder big enough to get up there to remove the one on the east-facing window in the upstairs living room. So I had a guy out here giving me a quote for fixing some of the siding on my house, and I asked him to remove it, and he did, and that's when we were able to put plants up there. But that is not a new window. So I have replaced the downstairs windows in the backside of my house with better quality windows. That is still one of the builder grade windows up there, and it just got way too hot during the summer here for the plants. So I had to move all of the plants from that windowsill, like they had to go elsewhere. But because of that, and this is an example of, this is not sun stressing, this is sun burning, basically. So this is what this plant looked like when I first got it. This is a Hoya Croniana. I believe it is a super silver. There is another term that is floating around there for this, you guys, that is considered not proper use anymore to a certain group of ethnic people. I'm not going to say it, but if you see it, you'll know because it will be obvious to you that it's referencing an ethnic group of people. Just know that that's not really acceptable to be using that name anymore, so just call it a Croniana Super Silver. Now, I have also seen Cronianas either get mixed up with or sometimes be referred to as Lacunosas. They are actually 2 completely separate species. They are both accepted species. They're not like synonyms for each other. So I don't know why sometimes they get used interchangeably, other than the fact that some species of Lacunosa look very similar to Cronianas. But this is definitely a Croniana, and this is what it should look like. It should not look like this. I'm so sad, you guys. Like, ugh. This is so washed out. Now, some of these actually are just really, really silvery to the point that you can't see that dark green. But over here, this has taken on kind of a yellow appearance because it was just getting too much sun. It was getting too much sun. Some of these leaves, you can see there was actually a little bit of burning. I don't know if you can see right there. There's some like burn marks on that one. And it was only up there for like 2 days, you guys. Like I tried to move it so fast. And now it's been in the east facing window in my bedroom, but that's a new window. That window does not get anywhere near as hot as the builder grade window. Not all windows are created equally, you guys. Just remember that when you're choosing where to put plants in your home. But it is putting out a bunch of new growth. You can see there's new growth coming in on this side. We got growth coming in over here. So it's going to recover. And now that we're moving out of summer, that new growth hopefully will be coming in a little bit more green. But absolutely love this plant. Once again, smaller leafed Hoya. I love that these leaves are slightly more elongated, more of like a teardrop shape than on the Courtesy Eye that we just looked at. This plant I have not owned as long as my other ones. This is my newest one. I got this one back in, I think, March, but it's putting out like a decent amount of growth for me only having had it in March. So I would say it's probably going to grow around the same kind of rate as the Courtesy Eye, maybe a tiny bit slower, but not that much slower. I also enjoyed this plant because it is also, at least up until this point, and I believe all the pictures I've seen of other people's, it does not have the brown stems. Like the stems seem to stay that more green color. So definitely one of the things that I look for and like in Hoyas. Now there are a bunch of other varieties of this plant, all of which I think are absolutely beautiful. This is the one I was able to find in my area, so it is the one that I got. But when we get to my wishlist Hoya, you're gonna discover, you guys, that I have a thing, I guess, that I didn't realize for like silver splashy variegation like this, because I think all but 1 or 2 of them, looking at my list, yeah, have this look to them. You're probably gonna be like, it looks like those other ones you already have, but I don't care. They're still gonna be on my wish list. But absolutely love this Hoya. So let's move on to my actual less small leafed Hoyas. And you know what, this actually, nope, this is my most recent one. Sorry. The next one I'm going to show you, I was thinking maybe that was more recent than this one, but I think it was probably purchased about a month before that one. And I'm kind of shocked that I got this, but this is a source of debate. So this was labeled a Hoya Exotica Tricolor when I bought it. I looked up Hoya Exotica Tricolor, and this is what pops up if you look up Hoya Exotica Tricolor. I then had seen some people saying this is just a Carnosa Tricolor. It is a Carnosa. They just, I mean, at a certain point on a plant label, you don't have room to put like 50,000 different parts of a name, right? So this is a type of Hoya Carnosa. But I recently have had a lot of people saying that this is actually a Crimson Princess. And I don't think they're wrong. I think they are right. I think Crimson Princess, and which is also a Carnosa, don't be confused. Crimson Princess and Exotica Tricolor, or just Tricolor, are all just synonyms for that plant. However, I swear that I thought the Princess was more white than yellow. This is like a very kind of yellowish in color to me. And I don't know if it's just like the leaves come in that way and then they fade more to white over time, but there's not a lot. Oh, I guess there's a little bit over here that looks kind of white. Let's see how well it reads on camera. So that definitely looks a little bit more white, but I don't know, just looking at this compared to what I thought Crimson Princess was, because Crimson Queen, like I know the difference between the two. The Crimson Queen wears her crown. So whereas this, as you can see, is light colored in the middle, and then it has the green around the edge. The opposite is the truth on the Crimson Queen. It is white on the edge and then green in the middle. And it's obviously white on the edges. So that's why this was kind of confusing to me, because it just looks so yellow. But once again, maybe that's just how it comes in and it's going to fade into that white over time. They also refer to this as, I think, the princess wears her gown, because it's covering the major part of the leaf, the middle part of the leaf. But anyways, whatever it's called, I think it is beautiful. I did not think I would ever own a Hoya that was this large leafed. I also love how the stems on this are very pink in color as they first come in. They do fade to a more brownish color over time. Here's a perfect example of what I was saying about when new growth comes in on these plants, it just looks like a woody stem, but then leaves will develop off of this. This plant is getting a little bit of sun stress as well, as you can see here. Beautiful, beautiful, love it, but it will fade back to this, I guess, yellowish and then whitish color over time until it gets sun stressed again, and then it will take on a little bit more pink. But I really do like the appearance of this plant. I am, however, slightly concerned that as it matures, the leaves might end up getting to a size where I'm like not liking it as much anymore, but only time will tell. Right now, I think it's a gorgeous plant and I'm really enjoying it. So the last plant I want to look at that is currently in my collection before we get to the wish list Hoyas is, of course, my oh so beautiful Hoya Carnosa Compacta Variegata. Love this plant. Love it to death. This is like, this is just a unique looking Hoya. So I guess you could say I also just like really kind of different looking Hoyas. So this is a carnosa, just like the plant we looked at, but is called a compacta because the leaves come in growing almost kind of crinkled like on the Hoya Eddie Eye, how the Hoya Eddie Eye leaves kind of fold up like this, but they come in very tight and compact and create this kind of rope looking appearance. And I absolutely love this plant. I don't know if you guys have ever looked up what this plant looks like in the wild. If you can find some pictures of them just hanging off of trees where they live, it is just so gorgeous. And especially if you can find some where they're in bloom. I cannot wait until this plant blooms for me. But once again, my Hoyas are all less than 3 years old. Typically, I'm not going to see blooms until I get into like the 3rd year probably. So, but this plant has been growing for me nicely. It definitely is not a super fast grower. I forgot to mention about on the last plant. That plant has actually been growing pretty fast for me. The Princess or the Exotica Tricolor, whatever you want to call it. It's really taken off in the last month. You guys saw all those shoots that it's putting out and everything. So very impressed with that one. This one's a little bit slower. It's a little bit slower. It's not like not growing for me at all. If I have a picture of what it looked like when I first got it, I will flash it up on screen for you. And just so you guys know, the only Hoyas that we've looked at that I have ever propagated were the Linearis and the Courtesy Eye. So everything you're seeing here is just how much it's grown in the time that I've had it. I've had this one, I think, for a little over a year now. Really? That's crazy to think that. If I'm wrong, I will flash a date up on screen for you. I'm pretty sure. Now, a lot of times on this plant, the growth will come in kind of almost all white like that, then starts to fade into kind of a yellowish color, and eventually that dies off because it's just not going to sustain itself because there's no green on it. But that's okay because in my experience, it then just pushes out a bunch more new growth that does have green. And if you can see down in here, and if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook at Aloha Plant Life, you'll have already seen this, but this newest growth is coming in down here that is getting a lot of light. It's coming in this beautiful bright pink color. I absolutely love how the sun stressing happens on this plant. Sometimes it'll just cause it to have some kind of like pink, hopefully you can see that right on the edges as well, but just a beautiful, beautiful plant. And once again, it does have woody stems, but because this growth is so compact on these vines, like you can't really see it enough for it to be what would bother me. I know it probably doesn't bother some of you guys, but I just don't like the look of it. I don't know what it is. I don't even know. I don't know. I just don't like it. Just something in my brain. But absolutely love this plant. Now, I did used to have an all green version of this. When I did decide to kind of purge some of my plants to make room for others earlier this year, I did get rid of that one. And part of the reason I got rid of it was not because I didn't like it, but it was not as established as this. It was a 3-vined plant. I bought it as like a 3-inch plant, and it was just taking forever to grow. And so I even said in that video when I was talking about the plants I was going to purge that if I did get another all green one of these, I would want to get one that was at least this size to begin with. And that's definitely a possibility someday. There's also other variegated varieties beyond this one. This one has the variegation on the outer edge. So kind of like this is similar to what we were talking about with the Crimson Queen having the white on the edges. There is another version of this where it is reversed. like on the one we just looked at, but that is not, it's not called Queen or Princess or anything like that. It's called a Moa something. I should know because it's a Hawaiian name, but once again, I'll flash it up on screen for you. I would love to have that version as well someday. I just absolutely adore how these Hoya compactas look. But that is it for my current Hoya collection. And for anybody out there who's like, really, you only have 6 Hoyas in your collection? I thought you were gonna have way more. I have a very eclectic collection. Anybody who's been here for a while knows I actually tallied up by genus the number of plants I have in each genus, and it's really close, you guys. I think philodendron, I have more philodendron than anything else, and that just happened a few weeks ago when I got the, what did I get? The White Princess, Tricolor White Princess. When I got that at the plant swap, that pushed me to having more philodendron than anything else, but I only have 8. I only have 8 philodendron, you guys. I think there's a tie in second place, if I can remember, between Calatheas, because you guys know I love my Calatheas. There's a tie between Calatheas and Epiprimnums. I have 7 Epiprimnums, 7 Calatheas, and then we move into Hoyas. I have 6 Hoyas, but I also have 6 Syngoniums. I think I have 6 Peperomias. So I just have a very eclectic collection. That's why when I do my favorites videos by genus like this, you guys aren't going to be getting like 20 Hoyas or 20 philodendrons or 20 whatever. You're going to get the ones that I own. It's going to be a small number. And then I'm going to give you some of my wish list ones that I hope to own someday. I absolutely love, though, that I have such an eclectic collection, and honestly that I've been able to care for them all equally as well, at least in my opinion. But moving on to our wish list Hoya. I had initially 4 on the wish list, and I keep going back and forth on some of them. So let's just start with the ones that I know for sure. Well, I'm going to save my favorite for last, but the ones other than that I know for sure I want eventually. And the first one I want to show you, actually I want to show you because it kind of reminds me of this plant, but it does have smaller leaves. So if this plant gets bigger and the leaves keep getting bigger and I'm like, I just don't like how it looks now, I would definitely replace it with the why can't I say this? Houskeliana. I don't know why I have a hard time saying this, you guys. This plant. And technically, I think this one that I'm showing you is considered a variegated version of that, although I'm not sure what the unvariegated version of that, if it exists or whatnot, but we're just going to go with this is the variegated version of that. But as you can see, very similar in terms of kind of coloring and kind of that appearance to the plant that we were just looking at, but smaller leaves. So definitely fits more in with my Hoya aesthetic of liking the smaller leaves, but still an absolutely beautiful Hoya. Now, the next plant that I want to look at, I keep going back and forth on, but every time I see them in the store, I almost buy them. So we're just going to say it's definitely on the wish list. And that is what is known as Hoya Matilde Splash. Now, there are some different varieties of this. I've seen Splash, I've seen like Super Splash, I've seen some labeled as Silver, but basically this is very similar to what my Croniana should look like if it hadn't gotten too much sun. Dark, beautiful foliage with silver speckling variegation on it. Absolutely love that. I have a thing for it. You're going to realize that when we look at the next 2 plants because they both have silvery speckles like that as well. But the nice thing about this one that I like as well is that the Matilde has very kind of round shaped leaves. In a way, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like kind of like a Peperomia Hope, because those are very kind of round, succulent type looking leaves like this. But absolutely beautiful plant. And plus side is that I know they're available in my area. The other one that I'm not going to try to say again, I've never seen those in my area, so I would probably have to order that online, or maybe I'd get lucky and find one at a plant swap or something like that. Now, let's see, the next one on the list, okay. I want a Lacunosa. I know I want a Lacunosa. I've seen other people's Lacunosas. Wild Fern shows Lacunosas in her videos a lot too. I'm not sure the exact variety. I need to go back and like rewatch her videos because I know I like the ones that she shows. Primarily because, and other YouTubers, primarily because they typically look kind of a darker green, similar to the Matilde that I just showed you and what my Croniana should look like. And a lot of people say it looks almost identical to my Croniana. Don't judge me and be like, you're basically getting the same plant. I don't care. I like how the Lacunosa looks. But I've seen them with the dark leaves and kind of the silver splashing on them. But when I was trying to find exact photos for you guys today, like I could not really find the one that I am envisioning in my brain. So I don't know what it's called, but here are a few lacunosas that I do also particularly like. This first one is actually called Snowcaps. Now, my only concern with this one, and once again, you guys, there are so many species of Hoya, and when you're looking at people posting them and everything, sometimes it's you have to be like, do they have it labeled correctly? Do they not have it labeled correctly? I don't know. They might not have it labeled correctly. It might have been sold to them labeled incorrectly. But this picture that you're seeing, I believe, is from Steve's Leaves website, and I trust that Steve's Leaves knows what kind of Hoya this is. So this is the Lacunosa Snowcaps. Now these leaves are slightly larger, or I guess I should say they're longer on this particular Lacunosa than you're going to see on a Croniana, but they're also not super wide. So this is kind of like how I like the Hoya Eddie Eye, because it's got the longer leaves, but they're not super broad. So that is what I like about this. And then once again, it's got those dark leaves with that silver splashing. There looks like there's some sun stressing on here. And so it looks like when it sun stresses, it is going to get kind of that maroon color to the leaves, similar to what I was talking about that was on my Hoya Courtesy Eye when I first got it, but an absolutely beautiful plant. Now, another version of the Lacunosa, or another variety of Lacunosa that I have seen floating around is Lacunosa Black. And it looks like this one doesn't have silver speckling or anything on it at all. It just looks like they're beautiful, very, very, very dark green leaves. And I love beautiful plants with almost black leaves. So that would be an excellent addition to my Hoya collection if I could find one. I have seen some other plants posted on Instagram and things that say they're Lacunosa Black. I've seen some that say they're Lacunosa Black Silver. And to me, this looks a little bit more like a Croniana, and maybe it's actually mislabeled and this is some type of Croniana. But even if it is a Lacunosa, I think it's beautiful. Now, I'm pretty sure we're just seeing sun stressing, and that's what's causing kind of the maroonish, pinkish type coloring on this. But even regardless, beyond that, it looks like a very, very beautiful plant. I would definitely love to own one day. But the next plant I am not 100% certain about, and it goes back to this plant again, so let me pick it back up. This next plant reminds me a lot of this plant as well, and this is a Hoya, I'm going to mess this up, Hoya Australis Lisa, I believe. So similar look in terms of coloring and things once again to me, but it has a slightly rounder, squatter leaf shape, but it is slightly large-ish. And so I keep going back and forth on whether I should have it on my wish list or not. I don't know. I don't know how much bigger those leaves are potentially going to get as it matures. If anybody owns one that's really mature, let me know if they get like way, way bigger or not, because that might kind of affect my opinion on this plant and whether or not I leave it on my wish list or not. But hands down, the number one Hoya on my wish list that I want to own so bad, and one popped up in a plant purge recently in this area and I did not get to it fast enough. It's probably a good thing I didn't get to it fast enough, because I did not need to be spending the amount of money they wanted for it on it, but it was gorgeous, and I was like, it was the right size, everything for what I want. I can't believe I didn't get it, but anyway, that's fine. It is the Hoya Wilbur Graves. Now, this is a slightly larger leafed Hoya, no lie, but I just cannot get over how beautiful these leaves look. Once again, silver splashing on Hoyas apparently is my thing, because definitely a lot on this. Now, there are different varieties of the Wilbur Graves. I do believe I did show this one to you in my wish list video back at the beginning of the year, I think. But basically the different varieties, you guys, have to do with where they're coming from. So you'll have like Wilbur Graves Russia, Wilbur Graves China. By the way, they're all carnosas. So this goes back to, it's gonna grow similarly to like that one I keep holding up. I'm gonna stop holding it up again. You've seen it. The one I keep holding up for you is also a carnosa. So leaves are probably gonna get slightly bigger than what I normally like, but I just love the look of this foliage. Some of you might be thinking right now, well, why don't you just go get a pubicalix, Hoya pubicalix splash? I don't know, I don't like them. I mean, I do like them. I go to the store and I look at them and I like them, but then I'm like, I don't like them. There's just something about them. I'm very torn on that plant. I have almost bought one many a times. I don't know. I think it's the length and shape of the leaf is just annoying to me for some reason. It's like slightly too long and slightly too broad for how long it is. I don't know, you guys. My brain works crazy ways. Who knows? But the Wilbur Graves I think is absolutely gorgeous. I do believe this is the China one. Honestly, I don't care if it's China, Russia, whatever. If it looks like this, I want it. and I want it now. But once again, probably can't afford it or shouldn't be spending money on it right now, but I think it is absolutely gorgeous and I cannot wait to own one someday. But these are my top Hoyas, and like I said, most of these, thankfully, you guys, are pretty readily available in the market, at least here in the US, and definitely where I live, with the exception of the Lacunosa, the Kaliana. Did I say it right? Maybe I got it right that time. And the Wilbur Graves. The rest of these I actually see relatively often, so that is good news for you guys. And honestly, with the exception of probably just the Wilbur Graves is probably the most expensive one on the market right now. These are all really affordable Hoyas. So if you do like these Hoyas, if you haven't gotten into Hoyas yet because you thought, hey, there's not a Hoya for me, but you like one of these, should be relatively easy for you to acquire. I do have some Hoyas available for sale on my website, alohaplantlife.com, so be sure to check there first. By the way, you guys, if I do not have something on my website that you are interested in, let me know and I will see if it's something that I can get added to the website for you or not. Some things I might be able to get added almost immediately. Other things, it might not happen until a few months from now, but always feel free to let me know if there is something you were looking for. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If so, be sure to click that like and or subscribe button down below. And if you need some more info on how to care for Hoyas, you can check out this video next. Thank you so much for joining me today, you guys, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Aloha!